Salutations from space and aloha from Earth, friends. Gemini Brett here. The short one, experiencing the beams of the setting sun in this moment, which is quite a thing because we've had a lot of rain here in California in recent days. Wonderful for the Earth, terrestrial blessings, but celestial things hidden in the sky, which has me kind of showing up less because I'm so driven by the messages that I'm able to receive with my eyes from the living sky. So I'm really excited tonight for the opportunity, I believe, to say goodbye to Jupiter as an evening star. And I wanted to speak with you about that a little bit. I'm actually having a Jupiter return right now. Looking at this, so I was born with Jupiter at 18 degrees, and usually I see 9 arc minutes of tropical Aries. This would be 18:08:48. I'd round up. Anyway, Jupiter in this moment, 1742 tropical Aries. So Jupiter return. You'll be told that happens every 12 years. Kind of, but it's really 11.86 years for Jupiter to get around. And once you've put some years in, and that difference really starts showing itself. So let me show you my 48th solar return, for example. October 24th, 2023, and then Jupiter will be well along the way in Taurus, you see. So the Jupiter returns every 11.86 years. When Jupiter comes through, you might get 3 exact alignments. My exact Jupiter return will be Monday, amazingly at 3:34 p.m. Pardon me. Well, I'm looking at a whole sign chart right now, and though my midheaven is in my 9th whole sign, traditionally Jupiter is the planetary representative of the 10th whole sign of a Gemini rising chart like mine, Pisces. And I have Jupiter in the 11th, so it says in that regard, like work in groups. And amazingly, that will be what I'm doing at the time, kind of combining minds with my first astrology teacher, who's Daniel Gemario, now of the Turning of the Ages Mystery School, and we will be presenting the 3rd of 3 or 4th of 4, including the free preview of these lunar standstill seminars that we've been up to. By the way, definitely not too late to join. GeminiBrett.com/standstill will get you there. If you hit that in a browser, it's going to take you actually to the Turning of the Ages Mystery School, where you could join us. And you'll be able to see everything we've done so far, pre-recorded. It's been great. It will continue to be. We now are going to move into astrological applications of declination, out-of-bounds planets, and much more. And I'm really excited to share. Yeah, especially given that tomorrow when we start, which will be 4 p.m. Pacific time, very shortly after my one exact Jupiter alignment in this particular Jupiter swim through the fires of Aries. So, I mean, you can get 1 or 3, right? When Jupiter comes by, Jupiter might just say hello once or say hello retrograde 2nd time and then direct for a 3rd. Depends on where Jupiter is in respect to the sun when transiting a natal planet. And yeah, I mean, interestingly, before I kind of just bring your eyes, well, I'll just mention now because I'm not going to do much of it, but I'm having a lunar return tomorrow on Monday, Moon Day. Actually, I should say 2 days from now when we do this thing on Monday. And Mars return too in the sign of Cancer. And we're speaking about declination, and I'll be speaking actually about this transit and why the Mars transiting of my natal Mars position is so much closer than this moon transit. And that has to do with being at this time and kind of a nodal reversal. So there's a lot going on. Pluto squaring my sun, Saturn on the trine, yada, yada, yada. But what I want to share about today is why I feel that even though Jupiter is currently, that's my alarm for, hey, sunset, get the cameras ready and whatnot. I wish I could show you what I'm seeing, by the way. It's like the perfect Libra glyph. There's half of the sun right now on the mountain here in the west. And it's just a beautiful thing. So anyway, yeah, let me finish this thing about Jupiter before I get into Jupiter's current visibility. And I'll just show you like in Jupiter returns. So after my birth, the first Jupiter returns. Let me make this thing quadrant. The first Jupiter return will happen around 12 years old. Is there a Jupiter sun? Yeah, let's just do that. So let's ask for Jupiter return. So actually had my first Jupiter return when I was only months old, because as you can see, I was born with Jupiter retrograde, right? So Jupiter comes and returns to that position. It was January 25th. But the next one, when you're about 12 years old, as you can see here, May 18th, 87, I would turn 12 about half a year later, okay? And at that time, it's a kind of around half birthday time, right? Solar opposition. So I was born Scorpio sun. That would be the sun in Taurus. And Jupiter's flying here, and he's not going to retrograde until the sun is on the trine in Leo. So my guess, let's just look at that retrograde. See the Leo sun trining Jupiter at the time of Jupiter's retrograde. He does retrograde in late Aries. He usually goes back about 10 degrees, so he's not going to get back to my natal Jupiter position, but the station was super close, right? And check out at that solar return, so my 12th solar return, Jupiter's like definitely in the zone, right? I was born with Jupiter retrograde. Here's Jupiter retrograde. The middle of Jupiter's 4-month retrograde is when Sun opposes Jupiter. I was born around that time when Jupiter's closest to Earth, and there it was to my 12th solar return in 1987. Well, let's get to the next Jupiter return. So I'll be about 24, really 23 and almost a half. You can see here the sun is even closer to opposite my sun at the time of Jupiter's return. Again, Jupiter will retrograde every time that the sun's opening to trine in their cycle. So here we are now, a Virgo sun, and Jupiter retrogrades in Taurus, you see. And Jupiter at this point is definitely not going to get back as close. He's going to station direct around 24 degrees. So let's see that, 25. All right, and it's after my solar returns. You'll see the Jupiter stations are around solar trines in the transit wheel every time. So let me show you my solar return that time, which would be at 24. And now it's almost exactly the Jupiter opposition, right? That'll be like the solar return of my life when Jupiter is closest to Earth, like no doubt about it. So the next Jupiter return, I'll be almost 36. And here, interestingly, when I was born with Sun opposite Jupiter, now we have Sun conjunct Jupiter. So this one before the third Jupiter return period, right, before you're 36 years old, is kind of like the most opposite Jupiter will be in his own cycle of phases. The Jupiter synodic cycle, the Sun-Jupiter cycle, is 399 days on average. And so this is just about exactly opposite from where I was born to it. Maybe the one before. So let me show you that here, because Jupiter won't retrograde till the sun's in the trine. That's going to happen with the sun like much deeper into Virgo this time around. Jupiter's, man, he's maybe not even going to get back into Aries when stationing direct. That is true, right? So only one pass for me once again. That really depends when you have Jupiter returns, whether you have one exact alignment or three. It really depends on the phase of natal Jupiter to which you were born, the Sun-Jupiter phase angle. But I'm also wondering, I'm just going to keep this going, like where in my life I might get 3, and I'll show you how at 83 years old, the cycle to which you're born is most precisely realigned when it comes to Jupiter. So I'm interested in seeing also my 36 solar return while I'm here. Yeah, in Jupiter now, almost 20 degrees away from the natal position. All right, the next Jupiter return is like now for me, this Monday. We already looked at that a little bit. And again, like the Jupiter phase, right? Jupiter is 12 degrees from the sun. When I was born, Jupiter's about 12 degrees from opposite the sun. So this one actually maybe even more so. Jupiter's just on the evening star side. It's kind of hard to say. I'm on Jupiter watch as I'm sharing with you. Venus will be seen first. There's Venus. And I could maybe bend down and see the moon. It's going to be a while to see Jupiter, if at all. So I'm going to continue this, though. So here's Jupiter's station retrograde in that particular cycle. Now at 15 Taurus, right? This is this September this year of 2023. Stationing direct around 5. In my solar return picture, the Jupiter phase so different than what it was at the time of my birth. I mean, you get actually a near opposition. It's just now Jupiter is on the morning star side. And when I was born, Jupiter is on the evening star side. I don't think I'll take the time to explain that right now. Some of you will pick up what I'm putting down. Next Jupiter return before 60 years old. And here, Jupiter and Sun, 30 degrees apart. Yeah, this will just be one because Jupiter then will station retrograde much further along in the sign of Taurus. Yeah, I wonder if I will ever see 3 exact Jupiter alignments in one of these Jupiter passes. Solar return there at 60. And again, kind of, it's like near opposite sun. There's somewhat similar in the synodic cycle to which I was born, but just not the same. All right, I'm going to keep these going. This one before turning 72, and wow, now it's Sun on the square with Jupiter. So Jupiter's going to retrograde much sooner in that one. So like something just flipped, actually. Jupiter's actually retrograding on my Jupiter in that particular return. So this is the one where I will certainly get 3. Here's another Jupiter return in 2046, and then a final one, which will happen actually after my solar return. Yeah, if you've been watching these with me, if you're still here, and I'm using my chart, but hopefully you can see how this applies to all of us. This is something was contemplating while Anna and I were just out at a movie, of like how these cycles shift over time. So this is the big one? No, so interesting. What am I in? I feel like 71 years old. Okay, so see how it's very close at that solar return, 71, like back to the exact natal phase? Well, check out the next one. So here I'll have a Jupiter return again before turning 84, well before turning 84. We're going to see Jupiter's retrograde in such a place that this does not allow. Something strange happened there, right? I'm still in the 71, 72 year zone. Wait, what? Hold on, I need to chase some Jupiter returns here. Oh, I'm pushing the wrong button. Got it. So 2046, 2047. Okay, so right, that's the one. It's after my solar return. I wanted to jump to this. So June 9th, 2058, before my 83rd solar return, and 83 is not a 12, right? 84 is 12 times 7. 11.86 times 7, 83, right? The Jupiter transit is not 12 years, it's 11.86 years. It really starts making a difference, and it's 83 years old where you have the most precise Jupiter synodic return of your lifetime. In other words, Jupiter returning on your solar return date. So here I'm going to see Jupiter's retrograde just at 24, so I'll have another Jupiter return. And look at how close that is to my solar return, right? The sun's only 4 degrees from my natal sun. Let me show you that solar return at 83 years old. And Jupiter is what? 31 arc minutes, 32 arc minutes away from my natal Jupiter. I'm just like right back in the Jupiter cycle to which I was born. It's a big deal at 83. Happens with Mars and Mercury at 79, by the way. Like these are larger cycles of the planets that are cool to see. All right, speaking of cool to see, let me get back to the topic of hand. So let me hit current transits and I'll turn this around. And I'll leave all the planets on. So as you can see where I sit here in Richmond, California right now, the sun has just set. You probably noticed some shift in light since I began. As I do this, I'm staring at Venus, who is quite high right now up here. You can see like Venus is 33 degrees from the descendant. Well, not all 33 degrees from the descendant are created equally. In fact, this is one of the greatest altitudes that Venus could possibly achieve in that distance from the descendant in the northern hemisphere sky. 0 degrees Aries, sets most straight. We're going to go to Stellarium astronomy software and I'll show you a little bit about that. I'm going to just take a little walk and peep the moon real quick. Beautiful. And I was wondering earlier, is Venus at the Moon-Jupiter midpoint? Dials help with that one. Let's just click on Venus. And indeed, Venus is currently within 1.5 degrees of the Moon-Jupiter midpoint. So that will kind of help me actually know where to look for Jupiter out here when it gets a little bit darker. It's still too bright out. Because if I just kind of put a hand towards the moon and one towards Venus and feel that distance, which is a semi-novile, you see this is 20 degrees between moon and Venus here. And then you'll see Venus and Jupiter also separated by about 20 degrees, right? So I can just like grab that by semi-novile, that 20 degree like feeling in my body, right? By pointing my left arm to the moon and my right arm to Venus. And then I can just bring them down. So my left arm's pointing to Venus and now my right arm will be pointing towards Jupiter or around the altitude on the horizon where I should expect to find Jupiter. Let's head to Stellarium astronomy software. This is this moment now. Hopefully I've been sharing, the desktop I am. All right, let's blow this thing up. I mean, not like really, I just want to make it bigger. Where's your full screen button? Something like this, there. All right, and then let me just make sure that's showing up for you. Okay, Stellarium astronomy software, amazing. I have this supersized sun right here. Although, I don't know, that feels to be about how big the sun looked out there to me. Well, we can supersize planets too. So Jupiter, right? This is pretty cool. Like Stellarium's doing a cool job of showing you that Jupiter is under the beams of the sun. There's actually some settings here where I can take away the sun's glare and the sun's corona. And it doesn't seem to do anything to me, actually. Let me scale that sun so you can see how close the sun is to the horizon. I don't know. That didn't seem to make any difference to me. I can push this button and it certainly will. I can take the atmosphere away. I guess there we're looking at the sun's corona. So here we see Jupiter and Venus. And then let me supersize the moon here, this beautiful waxing crescent moon right at the Pleiades. Wow, I'm very excited to kind of photograph that tonight. Hello. And I'm going to cry for reasons I don't currently feel like sharing, so I won't. All right, Jupiter in the chart, you can see here only 12.5 degrees from the sun. So the Hellenistic criterion for a planet under the beams, meaning just like lost in the light, right? I mean, like the sun has set and Jupiter cannot be seen. Why? Because it's still too bright outside in the dusk light. Venus can, because Venus is currently brighter than Jupiter. Stellarium will tell us Venus's magnitude currently like minus 3.99. The smaller, the brighter, where Jupiter's minus 2.06, okay? The moon minus 8.7, right? Like brightest besides the sun, and then Venus, and then Jupiter. And this is not a particularly bright time for Jupiter because Jupiter is so close to the sun. The brightest Jupiter gets is when sun is opposite Jupiter, the other side of their cycle, their 399-day cycle, when Earth is passing Jupiter by. Jupiter's closest, and Jupiter's also culminating at midnight, right, where we really get to see Jupiter's brightness dominating the dark sky, right? Obviously, we're not going to see bright planets here while the sun is still so close to the horizon, yeah? So let's move forward in time a little bit. I'll just move by minutes on this clock, and as the sun descends, of course, it gets darker. Now, I am hoping that it will get dark enough for me and that it will stay clear enough for me to get a view of Jupiter here, even though from a Hellenistic consideration, Jupiter is said to be under the beams. Now, Jupiter has southern latitude in the sign of Aries. Jupiter's north node is in Cancer here, and south node is in Capricorn. So everywhere in between Capricorn and Cancer, between the south node and north node of Jupiter, the planetary nodes, Jupiter has southern latitude, and southern latitude is not beneficial for visibility in the northern hemisphere. However, while that latitude, and you can see it here, like Jupiter is south of the ecliptic, this yellow band is the band of Jupiter's travel. Well, that southern latitude makes a difference. Jupiter's latitude is never that much. Like Jupiter is currently 1 degree and 4 arc minutes south of the ecliptic plane. It's like it really doesn't matter that much. Latitude also is insignificant compared to whether or not the planet that you're looking for on the horizon is in a straight or a crooked sign. Now, frankly, to use that term, I guess, correctly, Jupiter's opposite a straight sign. The signs that rise most straight in the northern hemisphere skies are Virgo and Libra. And you can think of it this way, like at the time that 0 Libra rises, 0 Cancer is on high. Well, that's the highest degree of the zodiac in the northern hemisphere sky. So the ascendant really has to reach high up towards the middle of the heaven at that time, okay? Let me show you, I'll just go back in time to here, let me just go to sunrise tomorrow. Actually, that'll be easier. There you go. Look at when Aries is rising, Capricorn's at the midheaven. And so see, Aries rises super crooked. That's like just the ancient term. We call it like I don't know what we call it. We call it a straight sign or a crooked sign. Let me go to sunset. And there you go, like Libra rises super straight. And that means Aries sets super straight. So that straightness, let me go back to sunset today. That straightness offers the opportunity for Jupiter to be rather visible at this time, even though Jupiter is under the beams. Now, who is that? Mercury. Okay, so Mercury and Jupiter are close to one another. I mean, Mercury is still, combust. Well, just out of combustion, which is 8.5 degrees from the sun, because that's like this red combustion zone down here, okay? This is Venus, by the way, in this photograph, 10 degrees from the sun. And here's Jupiter at 12.5, not nearly as bright as Venus was at this time, which was Beltane on last year of 2022. Yeah, Venus's heliacal rise as an evening star in 2022. This will be Jupiter's heliacal setting as an evening star, because unlike Mercury or Venus, who can run away from the sun faster than the sun in the west, Jupiter is being chased down by the sun. So if I just go day by day, you're going to see this gap between the sun and Jupiter close until the sun conjoins Jupiter, as happens every 399 days on average, and a new cycle begins, okay? I'm going to show you that here. Right, there's the sun just chasing Jupiter down. Obviously, we're not going to see Jupiter at that time. But today, here, March 25th, actually here, I think I've got a chance. And so it's time for me to shut this thing down and open some windows and put some cameras on some tripods and see if I can say goodbye to this guru, as Jupiter is called, in some lands far away, as an evening star, because it will be some time for the sun to now taking Jupiter under the beams, for the sun to conjoin Jupiter, and then the sun's going to have to pass Jupiter far enough so that, let's go to sunrise the following day, and I'll go look east, so that Jupiter is seen rising as a morning star. Now, here's a great example of why in this particular cycle, Jupiter will have legs as an evening star and likely will be visible well after this 15 degrees under the beams criterion. Like, I expect to see Jupiter, clouds allowing, tomorrow too. Supposedly the rain's coming back on Tuesday. And I fixed that downspout yesterday. What's up? But Jupiter, it will take some time in the northern hemisphere for Jupiter to become visible as a morning star. Like, let's look on the chart for when the sun separates from Jupiter by 15 degrees. Jupiter tends to be under the beams in the Hellenistic criterion of 15 degrees for about 40 days and 40 nights. So here's sun now separated from Jupiter by that 15 degrees. And, you know, we might expect, because of that separation, then that Jupiter will be seen before sunrise, reborn as a morning star. This is like April 26th. You know, I mean, gosh, I'm well past that here in Stellarium. Let's go there. There is just no chance. Why? Because Aries rises super crooked. In the northern hemisphere, like, let me take this thing and we'll just go down into the ocean in the southern hemisphere. Like, I'm just going to go exactly as far south of the equator as I stand north. Like that. All right. Well, the day length is going to be different and whatnot, but there, look at how Aries rises very straight, okay? So you are likely to see Jupiter as a morning star, just barely with heliacal rise at that time. But in the northern hemisphere, in this particular Sun-Jupiter cycle, we won't see Jupiter for a long time. Learning these kinds of things will help you understand more, I believe. Well, certainly will help you understand more about the astronomy of the Jupiter cycle to which you were born, the Jupiter phase to which you were born, the Mars and Saturn phases as well. While this applies to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto too, I mean, interestingly for Uranus, when Sun is opposite Uranus, meaning Earth is passing Uranus by, that's the time, not each year because it depends on the moon phase, but that Uranus might be visible to the naked eye. But we want to go, I think, old school in the very visible naked eye beings, the planetas, the wandering stars, who of course are Sun and Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And when I'm looking at these Jupiter synodic cycles, it's similar, though different in timing, to the Saturn cycle, 378 days. Similar to the Mars cycle, but Mars it makes it much more interesting because Mars is so fast from our point of view. And for some other interesting reason, the Mars-Sun cycle, or the Sun-Mars cycle, about 24 to 26 months, 780 days is a good number to keep. The Mercury and Venus things are just so totally different because their paths are between ours in the light. Yeah, so there's a ton of astronomy. That's like starting, by the way, in about chapter 27 when I teach this material. So if that's just all like, what are you doing in the chart and da da da, don't worry about it. But I do encourage you or invite you to engage with phase. This is like the oldest astrology that we're aware of, like back to the Babylonian, even to Sumerian. We have very few examples of Sumerian astronomy, Sumerian divination in the celestial ways, Sumerian astrology, much more so in the kind of Akkadian times. But it was all about planetary phase. Like the ecliptic was not the place. The zodiac didn't come on the scene for thousands of years after we have omens from the so-called Babylonian traditions, or the Akkadian, Assyrian, Babylonian, Hittite. It was all about seeing these planets in the morning before sunrise or at night after sunset, and really celebrating these times when a planet, after visibility as an evening star, for example, where Jupiter's been for so long, will then disappear, go under the beams. In the tradition, it said that at this time a planet will saturate the chart and be consumed by the sun, going into the flames to be reborn. So if Jupiter is being reborn in the coming weeks, what in you will be reborn too?